Welcome to Let's Talk Passion and Purpose, the podcast where we explore the journeys of creators, leaders, and visionaries who've turned their passions into purpose. Join your host, Nicole Thomas, as we dive into inspiring stories, uncover strategies for success, and help you take the next step toward a life filled with meaning. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Passion and Purpose with Nicole Thomas. In this interview, I sit down with Kate Murdoch. In this discussion with Kate, who was an Australian artist and writer, we cover Kate's lifelong passion for art and writing, the influence of mentors and early encouragement, her transition from visual art to writing, building a supportive creative community, her daily practices that sustain her creativity, and her emphasis on self-care and balance. We also delve into her current and future projects, which are rooted in deep creative focus. A little bit about Kate. She is an artist and writer, and she's the author of Stone Circle and The Orange Grove. Kate's short-form fiction has been published in literary journals and anthologies in Australia, the United Kingdom, United States, and Canada. Her debut, Stone Circle, was a first-in-category winner in the Chaucer Awards in 2018 for pre-1750s historical fiction. And her second novel, The Orange Grove, was a finalist in the Chaucer Awards 2019 for pre-1750s historical fiction. Kate was awarded a KSP Fellowship at the KSP Writers Center in 2019, and in 2024, she traveled to France for a writing residency at the Château d'Hautrevoix. After finishing her Bachelor of Fine Art in painting, Kate exhibited across Australia and internationally, and was a finalist in a number of art prizes. Her current abstractions are inspired by the purity of natural forms, using shapes and pure color to form organic shields. Kate invites the viewer to reflect on the solace and protection found in nature as our pace of life accelerates. Kate, welcome to the podcast. I'm excited to have you here.
Thanks, Nicole.
To kick things off, can you share with us how your journey into art and writing began?
Yes, well, it's actually been a lifelong preoccupation. I remember sitting on my bedroom floor as a little girl, just either drawing or writing stories. So I can't sort of remember a point where it actually happened because it was literally with me from the beginning. And I know by age 8, I was saying I was going to be an artist when I grew up. So yeah, I feel like it's been a lifelong purpose and passion.
That's amazing. Knowing at the age of 8, did you pursue a degree in the arts, or did you pursue a different degree and then transition?
Yeah, that was my initial degree when I left school, and I was really fortunate because I'd won a prize at school and that was judged by the dean of a particular university, and then I think that really helped me get into that particular university at the time.
That's fascinating. I do want to ask you, because you did say at 8 years old, you knew that was what you wanted to do. How did you know that art and the creative space was for you and that was going to be a part of your purpose as opposed to just a hobby?
It was just this innate knowing. Is that the only way that I can describe it? It was the thing that I wanted to do the most all the time. I just never stopped drawing, and people seemed even then to kind of want me to do little drawings for them, or, you know, that people seem to, I don't know, notice it, I suppose. So maybe that reinforced it a little bit. I'm sure it did. And my art teacher used to get me to sort of, you know, draw things so that the class could learn things, you know, from me. And yeah, so I was a bit singled out, I guess. And my parents, I'm adopted, so my parents didn't really know, you know, how to support me, but they did support me. They organised for private art classes and various things. So yeah, I was really lucky. And my art teacher was incredible too. She was a real mentor at the time throughout my primary years. She was an artist called Irina Sibley, and she was, yeah, very special.
It sounds like she was instrumental in your growth.
She actually was, yeah. And she passed away a number of years ago, and I was very sad. I hadn't seen her for many years, and I would have liked to thank her, you know, for what she did for me. I didn't really get a chance.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's so beautiful, Kate. And because you're studying art, she's always a part of you.
Yeah. I mean, she's the way she kind of drew attention to me. It was very gentle. It wasn't like she just made sure I knew that I had something, you know, and that a lot, particularly because my parents, as I say, didn't really know it was all unfamiliar to them. So they didn't know the right words to say to me about it or how to support me. But they did.
Support.
Thankfully,
They
they did.
And so the support was there, but also having that mentor be a part of your legacy.
Someone that gets it. Yeah. Someone that is actually doing it every day. Yeah.
Someone who gets it. Love that. What mediums do you use in your artwork?
I'm using acrylic and oils at the moment. So acrylic's great when I want to just do quicker work. I'm very much an oil painter. I have been for a long time. So that's probably my most comfortable medium. But I feel like I do want to do some quicker work some of the time. Yeah, I'm switching between the two at the moment, which is fine. And yeah, depending on how I feel.
Mm-hmm.
So I also use watercolor, like watercolor pencils and my studies mainly.
Fascinating. How did you end up becoming a writer? When did you pivot and begin to explore writing?
Well, it was an interesting time because I was between galleries. It was around probably 2010, I would say. And I think that when people are at a crossroads like that, that's a really great opportunity for personal development. And I just sort of started writing this manuscript at that time, and it kind of snowballed from there. I ended up doing a short course in writing, and I met all these people there, and we formed a writers group. I started writing a lot of short stories, and some of them were accepted for publication. And then after a while, I managed to get an agent, and then Stone Circle and the Orange Grove were eventually published. The only downside of all of that was that then I had zero time for my painting for many years. So it's a huge relief to me now that I'm finally in a position to do both. I feel like I'm a complete person again.
So holistic.
Yeah.
Very
Both integral, but
Mhm.
it felt like part of me was missing for quite some time.
That makes sense. Just thinking about your body of work from your writing to your artwork, what inspires your creative output?
In the writing, it's different. It's more it is me thinking more about big picture things, but also smaller picture in terms of relationships and the things that I notice in relationships with people and how they react. I find that endlessly fascinating. But also I'm quite interested in the last couple of manuscripts I've written. I can't help but return to the theme of extreme ideologies in the world and how damaging to communication, discourse, just people being able to get along. I feel like at the moment there's just extremes on both sides, and it's not helpful for the world. So I really wanted to write about that, and I've written about that in 2 manuscripts now. Obviously under the veil of the narrative, not in an obvious way. But that's a great thing about writing historical fiction, is that you can slip little things in there.
That's true. That is so true. You can.
Very different again, because I feel like that's a more inward, like writing for me is like going outward, and art is more going inward. So I'm going into a place of refuge in myself to actually get away from all that noise and all that stuff that bothers me in the world. And it's a safe place. So in terms of nature, I feel, a great connection with nature. It's very important to me. And so if I can sort of bring that into the work, and it makes it a very soothing process for me. It's something that really centers and grounds me. So I suppose that's the most important thing. But if people can then feel the same sensation of, calmness and peace, then, that's obviously great. So yeah, it's a very different mentality that I'm in for both mediums.
I can see that based on what you explained. But do you feel as if one art form informs the other in a way?
I feel like if they do, then it's not conscious to me. Yeah, they most likely do, but I'm certainly directing that in any way.
Yeah. When you think about your pieces, what piece stands out the most to you that expresses or connects who you are, your connection to nature, and how you want to show up in the world?
They're all kind of, to me, I think they are. I mean, I'm not obviously biased because they're mine. They're all endeavoring to do that. Yeah. So I'm sort of taking in that feeling of centeredness and processing it. And then it's, coming out in my brushstrokes and in the shapes and the colors.
That's wonderful. What does the process look like when you're getting ready to create? So we'll start with the painting first.
Okay, so that's about looking at photographs, mainly ones that I've taken, sometimes ones that I just find on Google, usually of tropical flowers or orchids, things that have, it's just about finding the right shapes and finding a composition that's complex enough that it'll be interesting to me to paint. I also obviously take in a lot of other artists' work and sort of, and try and learn from that as well. I love nothing more than wandering around a gallery for hours upon end and just absorbing all of that. So I'm sure some of that comes out as well. For instance, I've always loved the abstract expressionists, and I, again, too biased to tell if it comes out in my work, but hope it does to some degree. So yeah, it's an osmosis, I guess. And in terms of writing, it's similar in some ways in that I am taking in that material. But yeah, it is a more intellectual exercise. And I would say the difference between the two is that art, it's completely subconscious, and writing, it is partly subconscious. So it's my research, and my research has got a whole different, it's got many different tiers to it, from watching movies to books to, diaries to, fiction books as well. And just taking all of that in, archives, getting that into myself. Because I write historical fiction, the research process takes a long time. I'm sort of usually start maybe 6 months beforehand, and then I continue to research throughout the writing process, and also afterwards when I'm editing, because I'm checking for anachronisms and various things like that. So that's quite involved. And just my general reading, I think, also, inspires and helps that along too. Like, so if I have writer's block, the best way to get past that is to read some really beautiful prose. It can help me to, be inspired enough to keep going.
Thank you for that information. How do you balance your creative life with everything else that's happening around you?
Yeah, well, with the digital age, I think the world is it's on steroids. I mean, we literally don't have a moment to breathe. And even if you've accomplished something, just to think, hey, that was great. But no, it's on to the next all the time. And it's very intense. So yeah, there is a need for some kind of reset or balance, as you say. In my case, it's a multi-tiered approach. I meditate as regularly as I can, if not every day, then every second day, even if it's just for 10 minutes. I find that really helps with the mental clutter and just keeps me steady. I also have a husband who is like almost my opposite. He's a very pragmatic guy, and just his presence I find very balancing, to be honest. He's just a nice influence in my life. Sounds trite, but my dog, who I think she's on the floor at the moment, really helps. And I also have, most days I exercise. So I do yoga, Pilates, tennis, strength training. And I find, because I'm someone who's completely in my head most of the time, I really need those things to put me in my body.
So you need all of the activities you mentioned to ground yourself before you can move forward to create. I want to take a step back and look at historical fiction. For writers who are interested in creating a body of work, historical fiction, what advice do you have for a writer who's interested in pursuing that genre?
Read, and keep reading. I think from reading and taking in, whether it's fiction, nonfiction, you kind of work out what your interests are. So it's a matter of, like, for the ones that I've written, I'm deeply interested in those periods, because you can be spending a long time in that period and learning about it. So if you don't have a fascination with it, you're not going to get very far. So I think it's just finding those points of interest for starters. I would suggest to write short stories and submit to as many places as you can. And just having those small wins really gives you the impetus to keep going, because, as we all know, it's very challenging to get a manuscript accepted by a publisher. So to do as many things as you can to keep your, keep your self-worth as high as possible as you go through that process. And I think having a really good, community of creative allies, people that can not only support you emotionally, but offer inspiration. That's everything. I mean, that, to me, that's helped me for many years, having those groups of people and, close creative friends, just to keep at it, and to kind of commiserate with each other in what is, a very challenging industry.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the main things. But also another thing that I wanted to add is, along with those connections that it's important to make in the outside world, it's actually really important to give yourself time to be alone, to daydream, to reflect, to, give yourself a chance to have those creative sparks happen and then actually do the work to create them. So this is like being a hermit really is quite a lot of the time. And if you don't like that, this is just my own experience. Yeah, some people might not like the idea of being a hermit. I don't know. Although I do find most writers have a bit of a hermit mentality there somewhere, but
I think so too. I agree with you. I do.
And it's art world as well. Like, artists also love their alone time. A lot of them do. All of them.
All of them, but yes, and solitude is where you find clarity as well.
But the magic happens.
Mm-hmm. It does. It does. I want to talk a little bit about your writing in depth. Can you tell us about the birth of your first book?
Well, actually, that was a dream that I had at one point. I dreamed the prologue of that story, where Savernus, the old seer, was in a boat with the boys. So I dreamt that and it felt very vivid. So I had only written that other manuscript that I mentioned that I was glad was never published. So I was quite keen to write something else. And then I started, the research was quite a lot, being Renaissance Italy. So my Bible was a book about the daily life in Renaissance Italy, which had all the details. I needed to know, what they were eating and just little things. What were they wearing? What were their houses like, for instance? All kinds of things that I had no idea about. So I wrote it and started sending it out. And the other really important part of that story was a site called Autonomy, which was run by HarperCollins at the time. It was a site where writers would put up their work, and it was like a horse race for books. So they'd sort of rise to the top based on the ratings that people would give them. And it was also swapping critiques with other writers. That was one of the crucial things. I learned so much doing that. People of all different, skill levels on that site. And, I just found, and you become hardy because the worst thing is to be really precious and not able to take on criticism. Mm-hmm. I think that's a recipe for failure, to be honest. Like, you've really got to be able to take on what people say, and not that you should necessarily implement all of it, because your own instinct's going to tell you what's right or wrong or what's suitable, but just to be open. And that was huge, and it did quite well on there. It got to, I forget what number it got to. It was like close to the top, and it was like got a 1 to watch on there or something like that. And then so I had that. So when I approached my agent, I had that information there, and I had the short stories that had been published, so I had something, and she liked it, and it went from there. So on the reason, and then the Orange Grove came out, with quite a short time after that, because she was submitting it around that time, and by the time I launched Stone Circle, it had already got a contract with a different publisher, so that was amazing.
It is amazing. From your first book to Stone Circle to Orange Grove, how has your writing evolved over the years?
Hopefully in a good direction. I think it's a little bit more, I'm thinking more about the bigger picture issues as I think with the Orange Grove, I was thinking about morality and how that would play out. But I always try and have some kind of bigger picture theme now, and it doesn't always come straight away. Sometimes it's towards the end of writing the first draft that you might realize what it's all about. And I always have a little bit of a panicky feeling. It's like, oh God, what if it means nothing? What if it's just this lightweight, it doesn't mean anything? Because I really like things to mean something. Art, whether it's a painting, I just want it to have a bit of depth. And also, obviously, technically, I think that I am better than when it's interesting because the editing process is a bit quicker now. So I can send it to a few friends who are, authors or writers, and get there a little bit more easily. Whereas before that used to take a really long time because so I can self-edit a bit more now.
You can over time. So you've improved on self-editing.
I think so. Yeah. It's a bit smoother to begin with. It's not a mess.
It's a bit smoother. What challenges did you face, as you think about your work and not just your writing, but art as well? What challenges do you think that you faced and have overcome as you've grown in the creative space?
Big one was when I became an author and I was terrified of having to do public facing things, like having to do launches and interviews and all of that. I remember asking a friend at the time, how am I going to do that? Like I've always been just this, kind of low key, very private person. And for me, it was all about the work, and I didn't like the idea of it being about me. It's definitely part of the writing experience. It's a little bit part of the art world these days. They're doing more and more interviews. And when I was last, exhibiting regularly, that wasn't so much a part of being an artist. Whereas now I've noticed, I think that's also the digital age again, because there is Instagram and all these platforms. Of course, they're going to want artists to talk about their work a bit more. So yeah, that's absolutely the biggest challenge for me. I don't naturally seek that, that attention on me as a person.
When you think about the fact that you are showing up, what do you tell yourself to push forward? Because I know there are people who are introverts who are struggling and they are afraid. First of all, they're afraid to get started. That's one aspect. But when they start, the question becomes, how do I show up when I'm nervous? How do I show up when I really just want to focus on the art, creating? Any advice?
I think have a routine of, like, if you're doing public speaking, for example, I would recommend just, centering yourself, doing a bit of meditation, just getting yourself as calm as you can, doing your, preparation so you're across what you're wanting to communicate. And just, I think too, like, for instance, with radio interviews and things like that, it really is a conversation. So just, it's a conversation that just happens to be being recorded, like this one. And, it's not that big a deal. Like, you've got to just listen in the same way you would if you were sitting with your friend in a cafe. So yeah, I think it ends up, even though I do have this pathological fear of it, I always have fun in the end. I always think, oh, that was fun. That was a great day. I love talking to that person, or, or I spoke to this reader, or that was great. So every single time, and I know that now. And because I know that now, my nerves are not as bad. And I know that I can do it. But certainly for people that are starting out, they don't know that yet. And it is very scary. Oh, do Toastmasters. I did that.
Yes, Toastmasters is extremely helpful.
Yeah.
Yes, that's such great advice. You've spent time at residencies. How have residencies and fellowships influenced your creative process and deepened your sense of purpose in your work as well?
I think it's about the people mainly, just being around like-minded creatives and realizing that they have the same struggles, the same self-doubt. They're just as passionate as you are, so you can really feel, connect with their passion. They can connect with yours, which is just amazing. And, even without having long involved conversations, you're already connected because you're already in that space. So yeah, I think that's really affirming for me to do that. Usually these residencies are in a beautiful natural setting. So of course I love that too. And thirdly, regardless of people's life situations, they're often caught up, they're distracted in their home environment by various domestic things, family things going on. So to really separate yourself from that and go to one of these places and focus for, usually it's a minimum of 2 weeks, it's just so valuable, and it really keeps you on the path. And yeah, I can't recommend them highly enough. And the one that we did was absolutely life-changing. And in fact, it got me back to my painting, and no doubt, because I saw all these visual artists who were so adventurous and experimental and confident, and it made me itch to paint it more again. I was painting before I went there, but I wanted to paint more. from being there.
I can see how being around like-minded people and creatives can inspire your work. Reflecting on your entire journey as both an artist and a writer, what has been the most rewarding aspect of your creative career?
I'm going to answer that question in two parts because
Okay.
they've been rewarding in different ways. I'll start with art. So yeah, I had some really high points during part one of my career. So I remember there was a contemporary art prize that I was part of at one stage, and I felt was in very good company, and I felt very happy to be doing that, and the standard of the work was just amazing and diverse, and I really enjoyed that particular show. And around the same time, I was artist in residence at a gallery, and that involved going in there once a week and painting and chatting to the people that came in, about the work. And, I was so, just very satisfied, I felt like I was where I was meant to be at that time. So, yeah, that was definitely a highlight. And with writing, a number of things as well. So one of them would be, being able to meet other writers and connect with them and form friendships, which I've done over the years. That's been really special. And a lot of them, are my closest friends, and, being at events and just, making those connections. Also, I remember when I launched the Orange Grove, that was a very memorable night. There were, a lot of people there. It was this joyful atmosphere in the room. I was being interviewed by a friend who I really admire. And it was just this sense of this peak moment. I knew it was a peak moment. And I think really in an industry where it is, not easy, it's important to savor those moments and to really be present in them, because, it's not always like that. That's what everyone aims for, but it's certainly not always the case. It ebbs and flows.
It sounds so. And as with life, there are ebbs and flows, with everything, really.
That's right.
You've achieved great success in both your artistic and literary pursuits. What keeps you inspired and motivated, especially when facing creative blocks or moments of doubt?
Well, I take breaks, I think. I don't try and just push through when when it's not coming. I think it's really important to focus on your self-care as well, and the things that are going to nourish you so that you can, return to that. I mean, and also connect, as I've mentioned, earlier, those friends, those creative friends, and having the contact with them. It's numerous things, really. Exposing myself to more art, more writing all the time, or feeding. That just keeps me realizing why I'm doing it. It's important to keep steady and to know that it's more than just an external vocation. It's something that you are here to do, and that external stuff will sometimes come, sometimes won't. It's not something that you can control. So to focus on what you can control, I think, is important.
Focus on what you can control. Yeah, that's really good. It's really good, Kate, because a lot of times we try to focus on things outside of our control.
Yeah, and that's just anxiety-provoking, isn't it? That just makes it terrible. And
it does.
Well, particularly publishing is in a pretty strange space at the moment with the advent of AI. So, a lot of writers, I think, are feeling that and feeling the uncertainty of that. But life is also about uncertainty, and embrace the uncertainty. It's actually kind of exciting, because in uncertainty, there's possibilities.
That's so true. So true. So many possibilities. Just speaking of AI, has AI shaped your writing or even your artwork in any capacity?
No, I'm interested. I find it fascinating, but how the leaps and bounds that it's going in. And like, I tried out the verbal, the out loud chat GPT the other week, and I was amazed. It's like talking to a normal person. You can really, it's a really great resource. But as for putting it into my creative work, absolutely not. I'm not in any way interested in doing that. I'm not trying to throw shade on people that do use it for. I know there's some interesting artists that are using AI. I definitely don't agree with it in the writing space. I think writing should be, human thought and, emotion driven. I'm not very happy about that happening. And in fact, the Orange Grove was used for one of those programs a couple of years ago. So that was pretty annoying. And so I'm concerned about the writing space and the impact it's going to have on publishers and agents and writers.
Yes. That's true when you think about publishers and agents. And then the Google, there's so many resources. And I almost wonder when we think about agents, do you feel that writers need an agent to move forward? How do you feel about traditional publishing versus self-publishing? Because I know that you've worked with an agent. Do you have any thoughts on
the goal of the writer and what they're kind of wanting to do? I mean, and certainly here in Australia, you don't need an agent as much. There are a number of publishers that you can approach without one. However, recently, some of our smaller publishing houses have been absorbed by big five publishing houses. So that may end here too. And I know in the US, it's pretty crucial to have an agent to get any traction if you want to be traditionally published. So I imagine that, over there, I can't speak because, I don't live there, but I'm imagining self-publishing would be a pretty obvious route for a lot of people because it's so much harder if you have to have an agent to get published.
It's true. Sometimes it's just really difficult to get your foot in the door.
It's so hard. People have been saying, I've definitely got the feel from all the people that I know in the industry that it's in the last year or so, it's become even harder to break through. And I think it's to do with a whole number of factors, AI being one. There's paper shortages, there's attention spans shrinking, so people aren't reading as much. So this means that publishers will want to go for either a debut that it's like just betting on a horse that may or may not at the finish line, or someone who is already established as a bestseller. They'll happily keep bringing books out for those people. But anyone who is what's called a mid-lister in between those two, it's definitely a lot more challenging.
Yeah, that makes sense. You brought up attention span. I definitely believe that short attention span. That's the age we're in now.
Guilty as well. When I say that, I'm not saying I'm above it. Mine's shrinking by the second.
It is as well. Does that impact how any of your writings, how you're creating your books or writing your novels, or any of the work that you're working on? Is that in the back of your mind?
No, I am still disciplined and I can just sit down and do the work. It impacts more just when I'm relaxing. Like if I sit down to watch something and within a few minutes, no, not for me, and shut that down or walk off and do something else. And, or even when I'm reading lately, I've noticed a little bit that I'm struggling to focus a little bit, but in terms of the work, not so much. I still can get into that.
Oh, you can. And it's a discipline.
Yeah.
Discipline
and I'm
is important.
Doing it. It is a discipline. And I think I'm in the habit of just getting absorbed and getting it done.
Were you always disciplined and did you always have a habit, or was that something that you struggled with?
I think in the very early days, I was just playing because I didn't have any expectations and I was just enjoying writing stories. And then as things happen, you lose that a little bit. So I think it's a constant challenge to keep, dialed in, I suppose, to that enjoyment and play. But I suppose as soon as I started to get some results, I did develop a certain amount of discipline, like not writing less than 500 words a day, for instance. That was kind of the main one. And then I tend to write in the middle of the day. I don't really write in the evenings and I don't really write in the mornings usually. So certain routine and rituals around it, tea and candles and all that sort of stuff.
That's great. I was going to ask about the rituals because we know writer's block is real for some. There are people who don't believe in it, but that inspiration and staying disciplined.
Tricking the mind. The mind knows, the candle's on and the tea's there. it's time to work. It's like a kind of a workaround for what the mind wants to drift off and do something else. No, you're working. Sit down. Be quiet.
Or tricking the mind. I like that. Find a way to trick the mind to do the work.
And I have similar type of ritual when I paint too, with the tea and the
Oh, you
candle.
do? Oh, the tea and the candle. So just, okay. It just means work.
I have
love that.
music. I have the music though, and it's usually
Oh,
very inobtrusive music that I don't need to listen to, like lo-fi or ambient chill or something that can just be very. Or I can work quite well with classical as well, depending on the classical. If it's too urgent and kind of too many symbols or something, it might be a bit distracting. But yeah, I have certain music that works.
all right. Oh, wow. That's fascinating. Thank you for sharing that information. You mentioned that you were 8 years old when you knew this is the direction you wanted to go in, wanted to be an artist. If you had to take a moment now to speak to 8-year-old Kate, what would you tell her?
You're on the right path. Keep playing, keep enjoying, keep connecting with yourself through that expression. I think the thing as an adult is it does become external. What does this person think? What does that person think? And as a child, it is very internal, and it's a safe place. It's a home. And that's how I see art now. And something very beautiful happened when I returned to a more committed artistic practice following the residency that you and I were on, which is that I realized what it was to me and what it had always been, which was a touchstone, a home, a refuge, and an essential part of myself. I felt sad that I'd neglected it, but so long. And I mean, I had come back to it. I'd spent 3 years trying to get my skills back. But yeah, so yeah, when you think of yourself as a child, you naturally have all of that. You naturally know what you're doing it for. And it's only as an adult that we kind of get led astray a little bit by all that noise and that need and the ego's need for affirmation. The ego wants some people to, clap and say, that's great. But really, how much do we actually need that? It's nice, but does it really help the process? Does it really help us make good work? I think that what helps us make good work is ourselves.
What do you think about your legacy? What do you want your legacy to be?
I'd like to have left some beauty behind me, I guess. A written word and visually.
It's beautiful.
I think beauty matters. It's not superficial, because beauty makes us feel a sense of peace and calmness and pleasure. And, in a troubled world, these things are important. People need that more than ever.
They do. Yeah, more than ever.
There's artists that, whether writers or painters or sculptors, that do directly address these issues in their work, and there's certainly a place for that. I find those works really moving, but I don't have that drive in me to directly address in that way. I prefer to just make a refuge, make a something where people will be able to exhale,
Yes, that makes sense. What's next for you, Kate? I'm sure you have a lot of exciting things on the horizon.
I'm working on the draft of the manuscript that I was working on when we met in France, and I'm on about the third draft of that. That's set in Positano in the 1970s. And I'm also heading off on a painting residency in Greece in June for the Skopelos Foundation for the Arts.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah, I've got a whole plan of all the work I'm going to do and get all my materials sorted out. But yeah, that'll be really fun.
Yeah, that sounds like it'll be a lot of fun. Oh, that's awesome. We've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
We really have. Is there anything that I have not asked you that you would like to share with our listeners?
There is one thing. I thought I would just share very briefly about something my biological father said to me about creativity. Is I'd spent my whole life, as I mentioned, with my parents who didn't know a lot about it. And then I met him in my early 30s. And he said, he's a musician. And he said that creativity, it's a meditation. And he said it's also like exercising a muscle. and to just keep going every day. So I've found that enormously helpful advice. So it's basic. I believe it's basic sanity to share that from him, and hopefully he might even listen to this.
Oh, wonderful. Such great advice. This has been great, Kate. Thank you so much. Where can we find you? Which social media platforms, website?
There's a few because of the two mediums. So in terms of my art, the website is katemurdoch.com. For my writing, it's katemurdochauthor.com. And on Instagram, I've got Kate Murdoch Art for the art and Kate Murdoch 2 for my writing.
Kate, I just want to say thank you so much for being on the show and sharing your journey, your wisdom, and I hope you'll join us again. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, Nicole. It's been fantastic.
You're welcome.
Thank you for joining Let's Talk Passion and Purpose. I hope you're leaving inspired and ready to elevate your journey. Remember to subscribe, rate, and share if you enjoyed today's episode. Stay connected, follow your passion, live purposefully, and we'll see you next time.